What's going on, fellow A-plusers, fellow Force users? It's your host, Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new live review of Andor Season 2, as we're set to go ahead and tackle and discuss episodes 7 through 9, a very pivotal moment of this season as we look forward to one more week of Andor. We are here to go ahead and talk about all 3 episodes, give you guys our thoughts. And when I say we, I mean the full council today. Everybody showing up looking great today, man. I'm so glad we got the whole council, especially for this batch of episodes. I feel like the most important episodes all season long. I'm trying to figure out, like, where do we even go from here at this point? I really have no idea how this season, I know how this season wraps up, but from point A to point B, I'm really curious to see what the next 3 episodes are certainly going to give us. But before we get there, council, it's good to see everybody. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Doing pretty good.
Look, guys, as we go through these episodes, remember, these are simply our A+ opinions. We always want to know yours, so feel free to certainly share your thoughts in the live chat or in the comments after we wrap this up. Stuart, you didn't have to like tackle or beat up your boss to come join us today, right? Like he was
Nope.
cool with it.
Yeah, like the last week, this week, and the next week, I got all of them off, so no issues at all, thankfully.
Period. I think you should fight him anyways.
Yeah, just for fun.
Crystal, hopefully you've postponed all your bookings for next week.
I know. I've only booked Tuesday next week, so
it's good to see you guys, man. I'm really excited to dive into this episode. I gotta tell you, I don't know about you guys. I got pretty emotional in a couple of these episodes here this week, man. Episodes 8 got me emotional. Mon Mothma's speech got me emotional. The Cassian and Bix stuff this week had me like choked up a little bit. I mean, I was hella impressed with this week's set of episodes. But let's go ahead and start this off and start talking about it. Ladies first, Crystal, I gotta know, episodes 7 through 9, how are you feeling about it? Give me your overall thoughts. Let us know.
I mean, there's so much to talk about with these episodes. So it's going to be, I know we're going to get into it as we talk about this, but overall, these episodes were so good. They're so strong. And I really hear you when you're saying you don't know where this is going to go, because this was really kind of this big climactic moment that we've been building towards all season. These episodes were so good. Like, I was shocked multiple times through every episode. I was like losing my mind. Episode 8 was super emotional for me. Also, I was like kind of shocked how emotional and how raw and how really too close to home it was. And I'm really, really excited to get into like all of these details with you guys.
Yeah, I think close to home is a perfect way of expressing it for sure. It's pretty scary stuff, but yeah, really scary stuff. But I totally get you there, Crystal. What about you, Will? Just overall brief thoughts on episode 7 through 9. How you feeling after watching?
Yeah, same. Very emotional, especially episodes 8. Even heck, at the end of it, I was, whenever Cassian was leaving the city, and just when that tear went down his eye, I was there too. It was just truly, when I think about these 3 episodes, I think the 3 words that come to mind are destiny, sacrifice, and payoff. Because in the first episode, the whole question of destiny and choice comes into play with Cassian and his decisions, and we'll get into it. I know whenever we discuss the episodes, as far as whether or not he continues on with this. Of course, the sacrifices that were made at the end, as we mentioned, episode 9 with Bix, and her sacrifice at the end because of she knows what's happening with Cassian. And then, of course, whenever we heard that this batch of episodes was set in 2 BBY, for folks who are familiar with the lore, we know the significance of this particular year in the timeline, and with the second Ghorman Massacre, and also the events that lead that leaves Mon Motha to leave the Senate, and also just the payoff in episode 9, especially. I was messaging with Crystal last night after the episode. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch Rebels after watching this because of to see the next phase in the story. So yeah, it was truly a big payoff for things that we're building up to, and of course now we're going into one BBY, and I just can't see. As I was telling my podcast partner Sarah, I was like, I feel like this is the sort of penultimate episode before the finale. The way this batch sort of played out.
Yeah, I love how you stated that destiny and choice. That definitely hits close to home, especially with the Cassian and Bix stuff for sure, especially for Cassian. But yeah, I did see your recommendation on checking out Rebels. I actually did do that. I went ahead and I finished episode 9, and I remember you putting it in the chat, and I was like, let me go ahead and watch this episode. And it really hits. I'm glad that like Tony Gilroy got his opportunity to tell a Mon Mothma story, and at the same time didn't feel like it ruined or retconned that Rebels moment. Like that definitely can feel like its own separate speech and its own separate moment, and just kind of building upon each other. So I really love how those really do fit extremely well together. Shout out to PJ. What's up, PJ? Good to see you in the house today. Matthew, also, episode 8 was heartbreaking. Yeah, you're telling me, bro. You're telling me, bro.
I was really glad that you messaged me last night, Will, because I like had.
Did you watch it?
Well, we were just like yapping about the episode because I was just like so ecstatic about all 3 of these. I needed to talk to someone. I needed someone to talk to me about it. So I'm glad that you messaged me. We could kind of like scream at each other.
Because I know in the big group chat, Adam, you hadn't watched it yet. So
I was so
busting at the seams, and Sarah, I know my partner as far as on the podcast, and my wife hadn't either. Neither one of them had watched the episode, so I was the same way. I was just like, I need to talk to someone about this. So I'm glad Crystal was happy to indulge me.
I know. Our group chat was just like, it was great. Hope you enjoy. To Adam, because we didn't want to say anything to spoil it to him.
I gotta tell you, trying to dodge spoilers was crazy on social media. I'm glad. I will say some people warned me and some people didn't. So anytime I just saw the name Andor, I was like, nope, just scrolling past as quickly as I could.
Yeah. I just used all the third-party apps to do all our postings for our shows this week and just stayed off the Twitter.
Smart. Yeah, really smart. Stuart, man, let's go to you, buddy. Episode 7 through 9. Give me your brief overall thoughts. How are you feeling after watching it?
Oh my gosh. So things I knew going into this episode. I knew something bad was going to happen with the Ghorman Massacre because, like you guys were mentioning, this was something that was talked about in Star Wars Rebels, so it was something that we had, known about for a while. I knew Mon Mothma was going to give an inspiring speech because we saw, kind of the tail end of that speech in Star Wars Rebels, although it did play out a little bit differently, but, that doesn't really matter too much because essentially what she was saying was exactly the same. But so there was that, and I knew that these episodes were supposed to be really good because from all the reviews that I had seen before from people that got to see the show early, they were all talking about how these 3 episodes were like the best episodes of the season. I knew all that going in, so it was but still I wasn't prepared for how much of an impact that this would have. The Ghorman Massacre was even more brutal than I had imagined in my head. And I was imagining it being pretty brutal. The speech that Mon Mothma gives at the end, I'm like, oh man, they're really focusing on the fact that she's working on her speech, which means that this speech better be good or else it's just kind of bad writing to really prep an audience for a big motivational speech. And then, if you're going to do that, you got to make sure that speech delivers. It delivered. And then just, the emotional through lines that we got in this episode, all of them worked. And these 3 episodes were absolutely incredible. And I cannot wait to go into detail about why.
Yeah, man, I'm sitting there watching this episode 9 and listen to her speech, and I'm like, when did they write this? Did they write this last week? What is happening right now? How does he write this stuff? It was absolutely incredible. I totally agree with you. Her speech definitely did live up to the hype for sure. PJ in the chat says this series, especially this season, has been highly crafted, well written, and shot so cinematically. The intensity has been kicked up. Yeah, man, I totally echo all of that. I kind of echo everything that you guys are really saying. I will say I continue to, look, I didn't think I was gonna dig the way that they have dropped these episodes in batches, but these batches just really hit so incredibly well. I mean, I know I talked about last week about how it felt like a movie, but this really felt like a first act, middle act, climax, epilogue. I mean, it really hit on every little thing that I wanted to, kind of going through all these episodes, seeing the time jump, seeing again how it's one of those, it's crazy because last week when we watched the episode in the way that it ended, I don't know why I forgot the idea that jumping into this week's episode, there was going to be a time jump. And then when we did jump another year, just to see how vast things have changed, is so impactful, especially with the story that's being told. And like PJ said, just really well crafted in regards to it. And I gotta say, I don't know if a episode of a television show has made me feel so anxious before. Like, it's just like the intensity of, especially for episode 8 and how it just ratchets up, was just so palpable. I literally felt like I was in the center of the town. Like, I felt like I was in there with them, whether that be them just chanting, and then the stormtroopers to ratchet up, and then the TIE fighters going overhead to ratchet up even more, and then the like their national anthem or whatever they were singing. I was like, oh my, like you were waiting for it to explode. And it's probably one of the best paced, best crafted sort of episodes of television I feel like I've seen in like a really long time, that make me feel like I was living this event with them. It was just an emotional roller coaster, this whole entire whole entire batch of episodes that we wind up getting. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, like, I don't know what I didn't like about these 3 episodes. They were just that well put together, man. I was highly impressed with them for sure.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. I'm sorry, I just want to jump in real quick. I was just sitting here thinking about this too. Like, we talk about the idea of like how after we finish watching this, we're probably going to view Andor completely differently. This almost makes me feel like I viewed the Star Wars not franchise so much, but like the original trilogy itself on a completely different level than I hadn't really experienced it before. Just seeing the cost of what the galaxy is really going through. I think I even after Andor, after Rogue One, I might just jump right back into the original trilogy and see how it feels, how different it feels.
Right.
No kidding. I was actually having the exact same thought that you did, because originally my plan, because I haven't rewatched Rogue One since before Andor. The idea was I was going to wait until I finished, or till Andor season 2 came out, to rewatch Rogue One, just to see how kind of well it all fits together. But I'm kind of right there with you. After these last 3 episodes, I don't really want to stop at Rogue One. I kind of want to just rewatch the whole trilogy now.
Yeah. Same. I think the rewatch of Rogue One is definitely going to hit different. I know this week, whenever we were talking about the Cassian and Bix storyline, and it changes everything and recontextualizes everything as far as that last moment when we see Andor and Jen on Scarif, because especially, and well, maybe next week we'll get an answer as far as, do Cassian and Bix have another moment or whatever, or is she gone and she's completely out of the picture? But now, before, like this week, we were joking on our show about Sarah felt like Cassian was cheating on Bix at the, it was kind of hard for her to get invested in the relationship. But now I'm very curious, after she watches these episodes, and for folks who have similar feelings prior to episode 9, how does that, the events of this batch and in the end there that we see, changes how they view that final scene in Rogue One?
I got so worried, or not worried. That's the wrong way. But basically, I in a way, actually, I think I would say that I was like really relieved after episode 9 when I saw how they end up writing Bix out of the show. Because my thought, especially after episode 3 of this season, was, man, Bix has been through a lot. She deserves a happy ending. So when I kind of see like this was how they wrote her out of the show, and I guess we have 3 more episodes, so we still don't know for sure if that's how like if she's getting written out of the show that way. I'm just kind of relieved because now it's like a lot less of a chance that she ends up dying in the show. But yeah, because obviously we know that she's not around during Rogue One, and I think if this is how they write her off or write her out of the show, awesome. It's kind of a little bit of relief to me.
Yeah. I thought they were gonna kill her too, honestly. So I'm glad that this is how she went. I mean, it was so shocking to see her go. I was not expecting that at all. And kind of like what you were saying, Will, I also had similar feelings to your co-host about like, what about Jin and Cassian? Like, you know, and there had been like some articles of people that got screeners that were like, oh, this is going to change the way that you see Jin and Cassian. And for me, as like a Jin Cassian shipper who also ships Cassian with Bix, it just makes their connection and what they had so much more real, and it adds so much more depth for the lengths that they're willing to go for each other. But yeah, I thought that she was going to die, and I was really sad, but she didn't die, so that's great. But the moment when she left and Cassian was just standing there, and it like mirrored him as like a child on like his home planet, and I thought that was so sad because this man has been abandoned like 3 times, like heavily by the people he loves, and I'm like, oh my god. It makes sense why we have the Cassian that we have in Rogue One. And then to what you were saying, Adam, I feel like this just makes like what the rebellion did so much more serious. And going into A New Hope, when they blew up Alderaan, it wasn't just because it was Princess Leia's home planet. It's because Bail Organa was like the leader of the rebellion. I think they were trying to silence him the whole time. And so I think this just kind of adds like that extra layer to that too.
Yeah, I think about that as well, that, especially when the Ghorman senator was being taken out of the chamber in episode 9, and he shouts out, now's my world, your world's next. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but, again, it just really shows that the depths of the evilness of the Empire, and how much they're are just quashing down any dissent or resistance. But also, as Mon Motha's speech says, I mean, and we see it play out in these 3 episodes, just the energy and the power of media to manipulate events. I mean, we see it in episode 8. We see the news media out on the square basically continuing to feed that narrative that that they had set up way back, when they had the first meetings with the Ministry of Enlightenment, and we saw examples of how that media manipulation worked throughout the galaxy with Cyril's mom, and we think, just think, taking it to the real world, how thinking about like in 2016 and in our elections, and just not only this present day, but one of the things that Tony Gilroy talked about whenever people were talking about the speech and everything else. I mean, the thing about this show, and I tweeted earlier today, is that it's a generational show, because no matter what time, no matter where in history you drop this story, it's something that resonates, whether it's the late 1930s, 40s, Nazi Germany, present day, as far as some of the challenges and things that we're seeing here in our country, as far as the manipulation of the media, social media, political dissent, how people get branded as insurgents, even though they're really not. And just it's just so, this is such a timeless story, and I think that's one of the things that just makes this show just really, really pop and just resonate, because it just tackles repetitive things that we see in history, and how events can get manipulated, and how an entity like the Empire can rise. I mean, Cyril's the perfect example of that. I mean, he was the law and order guy, and just to see him, when the moment of realization, whenever he's talking to I can't the Zaz, Zaril, I can't remember his name, and when Cyril realizes that he's been duped, and because the mining and stuff is all going on, and he confronts Dedra about it, and just the realization as he's walking through the streets, and then whenever he's out there on the square when everything is going down, and I talk about choice and destiny, and Cyril made a choice. He was really, one of the things I think we talked about the first week was like, is Cyril going to like, is he going to turn? We were wondering if he was going to have a moment like some other people we've seen in some other iterations of this story, the Star Wars. And while he's in the square, it was just the hats off to Cal Solar as far as how he was just using facial acting to like convey the conflict that Cyril was facing in that moment. Because on the one hand, he's like, his whole world view is being shattered right there in front of him. He still loves Dedra, even though he's pissed off at her because of the manipulation and lies that he had. And then he sees Cassian, and then that moment all comes, the whole thing that like kicked off this whole thing for him is right there, and he just gets back to that. The hell with all all the craziness that's going on around him. I'm going after this man because he that was his whole purpose of being. And then I just love the moment when Cassian, after the big scuffle, Cassian just like, who are you? And it was just like, what is it? The old saying, the tree may fall, but the axe never forgets. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. There's a saying about like, oh gosh, it'll come back to me. But basically, Cassian is just like, it's another Tuesday. But Cyril's been like stuck in this moment for
years.
For years. Yeah. And it was just that was like one of the most best moments of this batch, and just the whole arc. Of those characters. Yeah,
it is one of those things. I mean, like Cyril's always been that type of guy. I think we've pointed out that needs that self-approval, like that to have that sort of level of self-worth sort of thing. And and when I saw that last moment, he says, "Who are you?" It's just like he's still not being seen, like people still don't know who this man is, despite everything that he's tried to do in order to get promotions or move up in the world. I mean, even when what's that guy's name? The Partagaz. Yeah, even when he compliments him, right? He's like, "This is the greatest day of my life." Like that's what he thrives on, right? Like that's really what he's always wanted, is to be remembered or known in that regards. And then for Cassian in the final moments after everything that he's done, to just bring him back down to who are you? Like it's just it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy to see him go out like that.
Having like that happen to him on the same day that like the Ghorman that he was like quote unquote working with in order to get to quote unquote feed him information, like that whole like rant that he does towards Cyril, where he's just like, what kind of person are you to actually believe that what you're doing is okay, to believe that the Empire is like there for good. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. Like you guys said, like the moment where his whole reality, it like kind of hits him like a bullet train, like he just like it all crashes down. It's like that sudden realization of, oh, we're the bad guys, and the only person there that he can like take this frustration out on is Andor, who just happens to be there at that right moment for him to like just unleash his like tantrum on. And something I did not expect, because I somewhat predicted that Cyril would kind of have a change of heart. I did not expect it to go down this way. I kind of expected, similar to what we got in, what was it, like episode 2 when his mother arrived and he just ended up like crawling on his bed. I kind of expected something like that. I did not expect like first of all, the scene with him and Dedra when he loses his temper with her. I did not expect him to like wrap his freaking hands around her neck. Like he was pissed. And then on top of that, seeing him in that fight with Andor, like, one of the other things that the show does really good job of is kind of the more realism when you get into like kind of the more street level fights. Like so there's two scenes that you kind of see that with. One is when he's fighting Andor, because we know for a fact, like if it was just a straight up like fair fight, if you want to call it, it wouldn't have lasted long at all. Like it would have been like one punch and the guy would have been out. But with him having all that adrenaline towards him, having kind of the upper hand, and it just not being that kind of a fight, it just being like I'm just gonna kill you kind of a fight. Man, it was so interesting seeing him like, you know, with that much like anger behind him and being like that violent, because you've never seen that side of him before. The other time was, of course, and I say this because we've seen people in Star Wars get thrown around all over the place and get right back up, you know. So when you see that one droid, I can't remember her name, but when he just like throws her across the yard, she doesn't get up from that. You know, it's like moments like that kind of remind you that this is grounded Star Wars. This feels like, you know, real, like, you know, like Star Wars from like, you know, a perspective of real people. And yeah, just everything about the way that whole thing was just went down. I think like the tension that built towards it, you know, and I love how we get multiple characters realizing, you know, what kind of situation they're in all at once. You get it from Cyril, you get it from the guy who was kind of leading the Ghorman, the one who was trying to warn them from entering because he knew exactly what was going to happen. You know, the feeling of helplessness, the fact that even Dedra, you know, someone who we just kind of like, I wouldn't say she's like pure on like a sadist kind of person, but she definitely doesn't usually have a conscience. Like she definitely isn't afraid to get her hands dirty, but even her kind of like showing hesitation for this whole plan as you know, as it's like all you know, unraveling.
Right. Yeah. Light Blinded Fool just said severe lack of plot armor in this series. And I think that is such a great way to put it. And I know that's something that like all of us have been kind of having an issue with for the last few shows that we've been reviewing. Like things have just worked out too well. And I think when there is no plot armor, when the stakes are so high, you really get to see like why the Empire is scary. Like stormtroopers, like as much as we make fun of them, like they're going to kill you. Like, and when that droid, the KX droid, threw that girl, I was like, dude, you would definitely die from that. And then she did, and I was like, oh, and then what was like, oh, and then the TIE fighters, like they made one TIE fighter scary because like the chances are so real that something can happen to anyone. So I think that makes this story like so compelling.
Yeah, you're right. The TIE fighter kept zooming over the square. It was just like any moment now, just like could have done a strafing run. But you know, this everything about it too, as far as like whenever, because Stuart, I'm glad you brought up Dedra, because you know, with her, you know, whenever it was her plan that was being executed, as far as the you know, that with the idea of, you know, creating these insurgents and you know, to, you know, because propaganda would only take you so far. But then when the moment came to actually do it, she did have a moment of just like, you know, what's the rush, you know, and whenever the captain came there, I can't remember of the to lead the Imperial.
He was like the trigger guy.
He was the trigger guy, and then they had the cannon fodder guys to, you know, and then they like, you know, they moved the, you know, it was just again, it was just basically setting lambs up for a slaughter. Because you see, they move the barriers around. They start talking about sealing off different parts of the square, and Captain Kaido, thanks, Light Blinded Fool. They just everything about it, and then, you know, they light the match by sending the green young soldiers out there with the sergeant, who was the hapless sergeant. He was just like, why are y'all keep doing this? Just so they could like set the things in motion. And then, you know, yes, the Ghorman, you know, there was a Ghorman who did throw a rock and stuff, but you know, but that was just the moment they needed so that the sniper on the top could just take out the sergeant, you know, to fire on themselves. Again, the Empire has no qualms about killing and killing their own, because they don't, you know, there's no loyalty, there's no trust, there's no bond other than we're just one of a cog in the great machine to serve to be, you know, complete fealty to the Emperor. And it was just so that whole thing, and just, you know, Cassian sort of watching it there from the hotel room and just sort of understanding what's going on, to get out on the street, everything about it. It was just that massacre. It I mean, it was just the true brutality of it, and just how, like I said, it just really set those people up lambs for the slaughter. But then also just the fall back to season 1 with Ferrex and Aldani with the people singing their song, and, you know, peaceful resistance, and then of course, you know, things go the way they do. I mean, that's why I think it was just so emotional for me. And I was like Cassian at the end. I mean, I did. I was just like, I teared up because it was just, that's, that's this excellent storytelling, actual visual, visual storytelling as well, just to make a TV show work the way so well that it did.
And I gotta say, going back to Dedra too, I mean, she seemed like she had doubts originally when they were even bringing this sort of mission up to her. Like she initially wanted to not take this mission, and the guy convinced her to do it. He's like, I know this feels like you're going backwards, but this is, this will get you closer to Krennic, and this will certainly like move you up. So I think she heard the plan herself, originally, and probably thought, no, this is this is a terrible plan, and tried to have an out. But also got convinced to take this position anyway. And so I think when the shit does hit the fan, I think those are her really true emotions in the sense of how she feels, like what, it coming back to like, yeah, this is why I didn't want to take this job sort of in the first place. And I gotta say, shout out to the production crew, the set designers, the stunt coordinators in here. I mean, the action was incredible, whether it was like the explosions from the buildings and stuff, the props of the extras too, some of the way people were taking these laser shots and stuff. I mean, everything just felt really visceral and just violent and brutal. And just to bounce off of what you said too, Will, the idea that they set this all up, the Empire wanted this to go down the way that it did, and they had been building towards it for years to just kind of come to this moment. I even put in that says clearly they want this to be a shit show, bringing in the agitators, security droids, young soldiers as bantha fodder. The way that they kind of set this all up in the sense of like, yeah, let's let them bring them in, let's get them riled up. And it goes back to that whole concept of a propaganda tool. I mean, you have I saw somebody on Twitter this past week say something like, that's a stupid plan from the Empire. Why don't you just like, why does it have to be a massacre sort of thing? And I'm just like, I was like, clearly this person's not watching not watching the show as to like what the purpose of this plan is.
Right.
But like they've been working years to get to the point of where the people of the outside world feel some type of way about Ghormans. And if they see the Ghormans as agitators and attackers, then they'll feel like the Empire is justified in their actions. And the fact that it went down that way, it's just like it's pretty incredible to see how that all worked. And I think also like hearing after the massacre, the people talk about our heroes are coming home. These people are martyrs. They're calling the Imperial soldiers patriots and stuff. I'm like, what? And people are eating this up. People are eating this up. I mean, even the senators at Mon Mothma's speech booing her, for calling out the genocide that she's seeing kind of happen right in front of her, sort of thing. To be able to, as the Empire, build this up over years, and I think as the show jumping from these year-to-year arcs and seeing that casual buildup, I think that's why the massacre hits us as much as it does. And that last when Cassian is leaving, and we get the radio transmission, that the transmission broke me. The transmission just absolutely broke me in the sense of them pleading for help and trying to tell people the truth. Hundreds dead in the square, thousands dead on the street. Like, is there anybody that believes in truth anymore out there? Come help us. And like nobody shows up, right? I don't, it's horrible to watch, but I don't want to say a brilliant plan by the Empire, but like they made the propaganda work, and the way that Tony Gilroy and the rest of just the crew were able to bring this moment to life was just, it was really in your face. It was pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, as messed up as it is to say, like morally terrible plan, but strategically brilliant, you know?
And you mentioned something too, Will, about the Ghorman senator. He said, it's my people today and yours tomorrow. Oh, sorry, Stuart. He said it's
I was like wondering why my friend
he says it's my people today and yours tomorrow. and he says something, they're getting ready to arrest him, and he's like, no warrants, no charges. And I'm just like, damn, we're starting off with no due process at fucking Star Wars Galaxy episode 9. Like, dude, if this is not talking about today, I would think you'd be lying to me. like, when did you write this, Tony Gilroy? This is so crazy to me.
Yeah, but it's, again, like I said, I mean, I think I don't know, well, in one of his interviews, I don't know if it was a Collider or somebody, but that question did come to him. It's like, there are some parallels, and he's like, look, I mean, we have seen this is not a new story. And that's why I said, and sadly it's not. But people, there's always the thing, Star Wars too political. Blah, blah. Well, I mean, it's been political since day one. I mean, just whenever the first trilogy was, I mean, the George Lucas is pretty clear on the record. I was just watching him and James Cameron talk.
Oh yeah, that great
about
interview.
The back in the day,
Vietnam
it was
War.
Vietnam. Yeah, it was just allegory for Vietnam War, and so, I mean, it's always been a political thing, and I think what it has, this type of things have to be, it can't be subtle. Like, for example, Mon Motha's speech to the Senate, it had to be on the nose. You just got to call, this time for subtlety is no more. I mean, as that, and that was one of the things that, I was her back and forth with Luthen.
Can I just read some quotes from the speech real quick?
She
said, I wrote some down because I was like, this is too fucking good. So the distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. The loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. And she says, when truth leaves us, when it's ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest. And then she had the balls to call out Emperor Palpatine for being that monster. And she even calls it an unprovoked genocide. I'm like, damn, Mon Mothma. I'd have to get out of town too if I was your ass after this speech.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I like the political bit. How Senator Organa used used the parliamentary procedures to allow her to speak. That was another underappreciated thing of one for some viewers. For me, just a wonk, and in my day job, I'm an attorney, so I appreciated that moment because they had the discussion about it, and then he they uses the rules of the game that the Empire has set up to like stifle debate, to keep to have the debate go so she could actually give that speech. I mean, it's a small plot story thing to the overall, but again, it just like shows how even in this moment of desperation, there's still ways to use the system to your advantage, even if it's just for that one important moment that she was able to have to give that speech. So, I mean, it was just everything about these 3 episodes. I mean, the first episode 7, I know we haven't talked much about it, but it's under, I don't want it to get lost either, because it really sort of lays the foundation as far as with Cassian and just everything that leads into episode 8. And one thing too is just with Organa, I'm glad that they had that little passing scene with Benjamin Bratt in the prior batch, so that it was the right call that Tony Gilroy did that, because the focus was really on not, oh, where's Jimmy Smits, but man, Bail Organa is like, he's a critical character through the story. And so we're not even, I mean, I bring it up just to, only reason why I bring it up now is just to say they made the right call. But again, it was just, episode 7 just sort of ramps up the tension. We get to episode 8, and then episode 9. To me, it was just as intense, but for me at least, but just for different reasons. No, it wasn't the violence of the hammer violence of the massacre on the street, but the tension and how she's going to get out of this after giving that speech, I was on the edge of my seat as things were just sort of unfolding. As far as and everything that Luthen had said about Organa's team, the ISB agent being in there, and so it was, to me, just as riveting as episode 8 was, just because of the tension of her extricating her from Coruscant.
Yeah, like the whole like tension that they had, like just not only like building up to the speech, but even after the speech itself. Because as they're like setting this up, it seems like a very simple, straightforward strategy. She gives the speech and then she exits with Bail Organa's team, and then gets to go straight to Yavin. Seems like there's nothing that could possibly go wrong. And then Luthen complicates things by telling her, oh yeah, there's someone or his team has been infiltrated. And even though like Luthen, he's 100% trying to stop the Empire, I know that's his overall goal. There was a part of me, because we know Bail Organa so well from like the other times we've seen him, where I'm like, that doesn't seem like something he would let happen. And so when you have Mon Mothma kind of fearing for her life, there's a part of me that was just kind of like, I can kind of see why she's like terrified. Like we know that when we know like later, because we see Luthen's point of view of it, like he actually does believe that Bail's team has been infiltrated, and turns out to be correct. So when he sends Andor, it's like, okay, we know that Andor is actually going to try to help her, but at the same time, I can't blame Mon Mothma for not trusting him like easily, and then like I also love just like after she gives the speech and after they're trying to get to safety, like she's been fighting behind the front lines this whole time, and so this is her first time seeing like firsthand what like this is actually going to look like, what rebellion is actually going to look like now. And so just it being like kind of a shock for her, but her being able to still push through it despite it being like also different, or again, just being something that she has never seen before. I think it all just played out so perfectly, especially like leading up to when they finally get to the safe house. And again, I think just the buildup that they had to it as well. And the fact that like the one thing that she thought she had, the one person that she thought she could rely on, turned out to have been working for Lethan this entire time. And so for her to have like all this stuff going on, but still being able to deliver like the perfect speech, the exact speech that like people needed to hear, whether they wanted to hear it or not, just incredible writing all around.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad that we're talking about Luthen right now, because like her not trusting Luthen and not knowing if Luthen's going to kill her, because that's where he needs that chess piece. Like her just like not knowing, does she trust Bail? Does she trust Luthen? What does she do? What is her options? Because we've seen Luthen really will sacrifice people for his idea of the greater good. And I actually wanted to bring this up. I know we kind of moved away from Ghorman, but it was like the Empire did perfectly like orchestrate this blow up of Ghorman, but so did Luthen. Like Luthen also was counting on that. I just feel like there's so many layers and there's so much like intricacies happening in this show. It's like absolutely crazy. Like a lot of these seeds were planted like last season. Our distrust in Luthen, his pragmaticness, like his willingness to do whatever he thinks is necessary, and like how that affects Mon Mothma in season 2. Crazy, insane.
You bring up the idea of like Mon Mothma not knowing if Luthen would kill her or anything like that. I seem like he has like a moment of contemplating it in the sense of like, what if she does get captured, right? Like she's got everything, and he really does contemplate the idea. You could see everything spinning in there for a second. Like, damn, bro, like you're really thinking about it. I am glad you brought up the idea of Ghorman though, because he definitely has the meeting with him and Cassian from last week, in the sense of like, why is it so important to you? Like, why do you? He clearly helped light this match, and he's clearly seemed okay if Ghorman wind up falling. He says, if it burns brightly, in the sense of drawing attention to what it is that we're trying to do here, sort of thing. And we were just talking about like, where do you go the next like 10, 11, 12? I gotta think that there's a big Luthen sort of moment here for him, in the sense of maybe we get another epic monologue from him, or like just him letting us know why he chooses the things that he does, or another thing about sacrifices will be great. But I just feel like there's another Cassian and Luthen moment bound to happen to go ahead and kind of wrap up his storyline in here. So I do hope that we get back to Luthen.
I do hope so too. I mean, I mean, I think Luthen and Saul are like the two extreme partisans, and as we, and because of, spoiler alert for folks who haven't seen Rebels, but but I mean, we all know it's no spoiler. I mean, the alliance comes together. But I wonder.
Dang it, Will. Dang it.
Dang it. If you haven't figured that out now, 40 years, 40 years, I don't know what to tell you. But thinking of Luthen and Saul being extreme partisans, and I really hope that, in some regard, I hope Luthen survives all this. I mean, I know he had the monologue where he doesn't think he's gonna see the sunrise on freedom freedom in the galaxy, and even the notion of freedom. I mean, at this point, I don't even know if it's more about, it's like, for him, it's about the win. And especially, Clea mentions that in Bix as well, it's about the win. So I could see, maybe next week the story, is that Luthen, Bix, and Clea and others just go off and continue to be their own little faction, and of course Saul and his band, we definitely see them in Rogue One. I just don't see, I don't think Luthen's end game is to join the rebellion. Either he's going to continue the fight as his asymmetrical warfare fight, as it's his own independent thing, to another, or he dies. I mean, because that's his end game. I mean, I just don't see how. I don't see him softening and joining the rebellion.
I think it would be cool if, like, at the end of Andor, we get an epilogue, like 2 years after Return of the Jedi, or like the end of the battle, and you get to see Luthen and them celebrating, or like getting that moment of being able to see the Empire fall. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know if Tony Gilroy would do something like that, or if he's very much like in the present of telling the present day story as it is. But it would be cool to kind of see Luthen make it out of here alive. But
I was thinking like something slightly more bittersweet, where it's like he spends like the rest of the basically the events of the trilogy like locked in a cell like underground, so he doesn't see anything basically. But then right as the rebellion wins, he doesn't necessarily he's still like going to be spending the rest of his time in the prison of the Republic, but it's one where he actually gets to see the sunrise that he thought he would never get to see. Like something kind of along those lines, I think could work too.
I was thinking something similar. I'm like, what if they end up like locking him up or something? Because like, at what point is his sacrifices for the rebellion equal the same sacrifices that the Empire made? And at what point are they gonna like shun him or kick him out of the rebellion, or do something with him where they don't want to associate with him anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys might be onto something there. I am glad you guys brought up the idea of like Luthen and the rebellion, because even like Cassian kind of calls it out in here when Will returns, trying to ask him where he's been and stuff, like still hanging out with Luthen, and Luthen's kind of asking about you if you're ready to kind of go back into the fight. And you can kind of get to see Cassian's mindset in the sense that he wants to do bigger things that he feels might be more successful, in the sense that like we're building an army now, right? Like he's got a great line in here. Do you want to fight or win? In the sense that makes it feel like Cassian thinks that maybe Luthen's thinking a little bit too small in certain regards, or maybe doesn't feel like what Luthen is doing will get the end results that he's hoping for. But now that he's part of this army, if you will, when it comes to the rebellion, maybe they can do bigger and better things. So it is interesting to kind of see that, yes, while there are bits and pieces of the rebellion kind of spread out, there's a bigger rebellion kind of growing in one particular thing. Over on Yavin. And I did put in my notes that says, I wish we saw some of the familiar faces from from Yavin originally. I didn't
Me
see any.
too.
Did we see it? Nobody popped up, huh? From the original group that was left
We
We
stranded
had
on there.
General Draven, who was
Yep,
in Rogue
Draven.
One.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No,
Draven.
yeah, Draven came back from Rogue One, but I meant from like episodes. Was it 2 or 3 when Andor got stranded on Yavin and he wound up leaving the people?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
I
those
think
people.
one
Yeah.
of them, because wasn't he with Will on Ghorman, and he was like, "Oh, I know you." Wasn't that one of the
Was that
guys
the
from
guy?
Yavin?
Oh wait, no, are you
No.
talking about it at the in the hotel, the receptionist?
When
No.
he like hit K2 with the car.
Oh,
And the guy
he was.
came out.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
But
that
I
was
think he
he was the
remembers him
one.
from Gorman.
He remembers him from Gorman because he was the one that was
Oh,
sort of partially responsible for Sento's death.
oh,
That was that dude. Yeah.
one who really messed up.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he
that
brought the
dude.
blaster after they told him not to do so. But speaking of blasters, we did get that we did see Melshi return at the there
Oh yeah,
of Yavin.
yeah.
So from season 1 and so we do get some folks, but yeah, but Crystal, you're right. I was thinking that was with since we are back on Yavin, I was like, I guess this had to be filled in by headcanon or a comic book or whatever.
Yeah.
Sort of seeing how those folks who we were left with, I guess 2 years prior, how what happened in the interim to get that cell and that base established.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they purposely just wanted to leave it open in case like someone else wanted to kind of write like an in between. Something I didn't want to bring up because I just thought about it. The with the receptionist, I do love again like this show does a great job of creating chain events, like where it's like moments that like have a big impact later on get kind of like set up, like little crumbs of it get set up in the show. And I think one of them was the really popular line in Rogue One. Rebellions are built on hope, and I love how that line comes from the fact that they set it up in like the previous 3 episodes. All Andor did was just respect the dude that was helping him to his hotel room by actually like listening to what he had to say about the Empire, not trying to convince him to join a rebellion or anything, just like listen to what he had to say. And through that, in these episodes suddenly he realizes that Andor is the kind of guy that he can trust. And so he helps Andor out by deleting, I can't remember what exactly it was. It was like something that was going to get reported because something about his fake ID didn't make sense. And so I love how he basically goes out of his way to shred that evidence for him and then drops the famous line, which of course Andor will then later use in Rogue One, which is the idea that rebellions are built on hope. That same line that Jen Erso will later use to inspire, to inspire Rogue One, or the assault on the Citadel in order to get the plans to the Death Star. Like, just again, the way they get set up, such small things have such a big impact later on is just absolutely incredible.
I thought I saw him as part of the rebellion in episode 7 when they're the receptionist that you're talking about. I thought I saw him briefly underground with the rebels on Gore as they were arguing. I thought I saw him in like the preview or in episode 7 or something like that, but because homeboy had a grenade with him all of a sudden, like
that's true.
homeboy had a grenade with him, so I was like, where did he get that from? So there was a part of me that was like, I wonder if I thought I saw him end up joining the rebel. I have to go back and check them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, have you ever worked at a hotel? Maybe that's just it comes with the job,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you brought him up though, because I think that's just another thing about Cassian as far as his just ability to. It's like relationships. There's little things that makes him that makes people trust him. And one of the things where I was going also with episode 7, it's titled The Messenger, and get into the whole point of destiny and luck, and of course we do, it's not called the Force, but it is the Force with that one lady, but it to me, I was just like I was been wrestling with Cassian. And Luthen talks about this. Every critical event that Cassian's around, whether it's Navin, Aldani, Gorman, how much of this, and then of course, whenever the messenger, the force user healer, like touches him, and she sees something and it causes her calm, but also, but Cassian, reacts in fear, and he, all throughout he kept talking about, it's my decision, it really, I've just been wrestling with, like, in the overall grand Star Wars thing, the mystical force and destiny and being at the right place at the right time, and if you make it, the idea of free will, as far as what making a decision on Monday, how that impacts Tuesday, and so it's just been, even though it's not necessarily, I just feel like Cassian's like a special being, like, even though he's not called the chosen one, like, or like Anakin was, or even like Luke, and Luke's destiny to be the one that takes that impossible shot. Cassian is a special being in the galaxy who just happens to be at the right place at the right time, and he even said himself, maybe it's just luck.
Yeah, he does mention the idea of, like, maybe I'm just lucky. It does just feel like the force is kind of using him as like a conduit to kind of put him in the places that he kind of needs to be. And I am glad you brought up the idea of the healer, because when she touches him, she says the clarity, I thought it had been gone for good, so easy to lose faith, and then talks about all that he's kind of been gathering, in the sense that, like, every moment that he's been in is leading him to sort of a much bigger picture. And I am curious, like, this is our first time, I feel like, we've, outside of Rogue One, I feel like this is the first time that we've been able to see Cassian struggle with, like, the concept of, like, his own like, just the spiritual world and things like that, in regards to, like, his own sort of personal beliefs. He clearly views the force as like a scam in some way, doesn't necessarily believe it, but clearly Bix does. Bix definitely believes in the concept either of the force or a higher being or just a higher purpose that we kind of all have. And I'm glad you brought up episode 7, because 7 and 9 really connect beautifully, I think, in regards to clearly what Cassian wants for himself, and clearly the force having, like, other plans for him. And I think the fact that Bix understands that he has a higher purpose, that the rebellion truly needs him, to kind of take it out of his hands and make that decision for him, I thought was pretty interesting. But you're right, he mentions the idea that he's lucky. I think even Luthen says, like, are you sure that's luck, sort of thing. And I did have a question. Vel pops up again in here. And taking into consideration a year after Cinta passes, she talks about the idea that she's kind of gotten reckless, but she also has a conversation with Bix about having to convince Cassian to stay. Do you think Vel pushes her to leave, or do you think that's a decision Bix makes on her own?
I think it definitely impacted her decision. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that.
Oh, no, I agree. I was going to say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like the reason, but I think it contributed to it.
Yeah, I just found that moment really powerful. It crushed my heart, man. I'm not gonna lie, it crushed my heart to kind of see Cassian, who wanted to get out, wanted to do something else with his life. Yeah, I think the concept of relationships is a really interesting one here in Andor too, and the struggle of being with somebody and balancing the concept of being a part of the rebellion and the war and the cost that it kind of all brings. We've seen what happens with Vel and Cinta and how tragic it can be, but then you also get to see the other side of it with somebody like Will and his Deidre, or the girl that he's with, sort of thing, right? Maybe not necessarily getting a happy ending. I have no idea how episodes 10 through 12 certainly go, but they're clearly making it work through the rebellion. And so to kind of see Cassian, I don't know if he sees what Will has, the passion that he has for, like, wanting to not leave this girl behind, if it's just a reminder for him as to, like, why he really wants to just leave this behind and go somewhere with Bix, and for Bix to kind of just up and leave, clearly something that clearly breaks our heart too. I did not expect that for Cassian and Bix. I don't know what I expected. I think, like we talked about at the beginning, I thought Bix was gonna die. I didn't expect her departure from the show. And again, she could pop up a year later for all we know. But this was not how I this is not how I planned it for him, man. This is not how I planned it.
I think one of my favorite things about like the way that this whole part of the Force was introduced in Andor is that we get it from someone who clearly has a connection to the Force but isn't a Jedi, and because of that, her what she's able to tell Andor, what she's able to do with her abilities, the fact that she even references that her healing abilities don't always work, it gives us just this really cool like kind of like you look at Star Wars Episode 4, for example, the line where Han Solo says he doesn't believe in the Force and that he's seen millions of things in this galaxy and nothing that make him believe that there's some powerful thing that connects everything. And then you look at the prequels and I'm like, how does someone live in this universe and not believe in the Force? But then when you look at Andor on its own and you see like everything just through Andor's perspective, it's like suddenly that perspective of not believing in the Force does make a lot of sense, because you have a lot of people that may have that Force connection but aren't full on Jedis, and so those are the kind of people that people like Andor will see and will be like, oh yeah, if this person's making it up, clearly it's all made up. But I love this connection she has with the Force because it's strong enough for her to know vaguely that Andor's role is important, but not to know the specifics on why it's important. And I love how it gets Andor in this position where he's still like he's kind of questioning. He doesn't want to believe what he saw was like actually like real, was actually like a Force vision, but it also is just kind of like it's vague enough for him to still be able to deny it to himself. And I think it makes this show very I would be very curious to hear the perspective of the Force from someone who's only seen the show and hasn't seen like other Star Wars, because I like how if you were to watch the show on its own, you would probably be questioning the Force just as much as Andor himself is. Like, was she actually this all-powerful Force being, or was this all just in Andor's head,
Someone on Twitter told me that like Vix was Force sensitive, and it totally went over my head. What do you guys think?
I wouldn't call it far-fetched. Lisa says Vix says she was thinking about it for a while. I don't know. Do you guys think she's Force sensitive?
Well, the reasons I saw was like, she was having visions at the beginning of the season, dreams, visions. And then in this one, she said she had told Cassian, like, she also had this feeling. So maybe she's not like a Jedi or whatever, but maybe she had like some connection to the Force. I don't know. It totally went over my head, but.
I thought the visions was more just for the PTSD from
just
being
on the drugs she was taking.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah,
and the stress of the from Dr. Gorst, just from the mind assault that the torture from that, and then just the the questioning. But the thinking back to the second arc, there was a lot of just Cassian sort of like both of them questioning like their role in all of this. Was really there because I think to the Vix was they were talking about like decorating a safe house and so at that point it seemed that she was ready to like maybe do something different, but and Cassie was the one having a hard time because when you think about when they were going shopping, he could not relax and just be, whereas she could she was able to do that and start to try to enjoy Coruscant. I mean, he was saying, hey, we're on Coruscant, we can enjoy this great place, but he couldn't do it. And then of course we see the reaction when he was very protective of her. And so to your point, Crystal, I don't know if it's so much she's a Force sensitive, but maybe someone mentioned this in the chat. I think she came to the realization that in order for him to meet his destiny or meet what he needs to be for the rebellion, she's gonna have to leave. So I don't know if it was a question of her being Force sensitive. It's just sort of reading the tea leaves and just like, I mean, Cass has a greater purpose, and the only way he's going to fulfill this purpose is I've got to leave. And so again, so that when I mentioned at the top as far as my overall thoughts, as far as sacrifice, I mean, there are a lot of different ways to sacrifice. I mean, there's clearly, the ultimate sacrifice, but then there's also the sacrifice of happiness. And I think Adam, you brought up, Will has been able to thread that needle twice, on,
Yeah.
with, the Harvest Planet, and now, meeting, especially after, him being with Saul's crew, but then, getting with the Gore and his girlfriend there. And, he's been able to thread that needle, but, Cassian and Bix, just every time and every moment they have something. It's like Luthen has this like ESP that when Cass and Bix are about to have an intimate moment, he just has to send Will to like throw a hand grenade and blow it all up. Like, damn it.
Yeah, it's the Cassian and Bix stuff has been really compelling for me this season. This is the type of stuff that I kind of wish we had gotten a little bit more of in season 1. But the fact that we now had them here for a long period of time in season 2, the storyline has definitely been fantastic between these two. And you're right, the idea that she realizes that he's trying to protect her more than stay focused on doing what needs to be done when it comes to the rebellion. Luthen even kind of calls him out on that same concept also.
Right.
Bix is the only one to kind of, I hate this choice, but I mean, it's a smart one in regards to
like Blind to Fool makes a
him.
good point. Is see why she made the choice is all about the mission and the rebels. And I mean that, and she that was, I think that's why Luthen like had that conversation with her in the previous episodes. It's like, look, we need you, and you're our ace, and so that's why he gave her the opportunity to take out Gorst, so she could get that clarity of purpose back.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think earlier on in the season, Biggs probably would have left with Cassian. And I think that's like what makes this so sad in episode 9 is that she leaves him.
Yeah, being around the rest of the rebels, and I think in my notes, not only the idea of the rebellion growing, but just their dependency on him. The idea that even Draven doesn't want him to leave. Like we really need you here. Just emphasizing just how impactful he is already for this rebellion. So, I do like the idea that after he realizes that she's gone and he runs looking for her to see if he can kind of catch her before the transport is gone, the realization that she's gone, and then he's just sitting there thinking, and then homeboy comes out of nowhere and it's like, hey, we need you for something here. Can you look at something? And immediately he's just like, well, this is my life now. Like it's just accepting of understanding, like this is the path that I'm supposed to be on, sort of thing. And that does lead us to the K2SO moment. Nice little Easter egg that we're gonna get to see him in 10, 11, and 12 here. What'd you guys think about that scene?
So I love the scene where they brought him back. I do have to kind of nitpick. So I have 2 nitpicks for these 3 episodes. This is one of them. It did kind of feel very out of nowhere for him to just kind of like look at the droid and go, actually, I'm going to take this with me, just because I don't know. That just doesn't seem like something he would do. Like I've never seen him kind of like, I know he was kind of a scavenger, like at the beginning of the series, and that's how he, made his living. But I don't know. It's not something that we've seen him do kind of like since then, though. Like, while on his missions, he's never just kind of gone, oh, here's this weapon that the Empire uses, I'm just going to grab that and take it with me. I think if we have seen something like, and also if anyone has something that they can correct me on with that, please let me know. I can't think of a moment where it kind of like he's done something similar. So to me, it just felt like a very kind of, no pun intended, but it kind of felt forced, Well, maybe it was the Force that influenced him to do it. Who knows?
Since we're on that topic, let's go. Any light sides, any dark sides for these 3 episodes? Any pros, any cons that we didn't talk about? Or
I got one more.
You got another con?
Yeah, nitpick though, and then if you guys disagree with me on this, please let me know. I did think, and I totally get why they did it, but when they went from rescuing Mon Mothma and they get to the apartment, I I think it also kind of felt very forced in order to make sure it tied into Rebels, for them to kind of be like, we're going to actually, instead of sending her to Yavin, we're going to have 2 people come from Yavin to pick her up, to then drop her off in this area where the ghost is going to pick her up, and then she's going to give her speech. It just, that whole thing kind of seemed very convoluted. I think they could have easily just like rewrote it so like Gold Squadron was already there waiting for her to take her. But I think like the way they kind of like said it, and then the fact that they were also like, we're going to change the story too. It just kind of like, especially because, and I know it's like we're comparing 2 very different things, but it's like, didn't you just like literally your speech, part of it was like how the truth is very important, and now you're saying you're going to change the story. I think that just felt, again, kind of just forced in order to make sure that it fit in like better with the continuity. You know, it kind of gave me Star Trek Discovery vibes when Spock was like, we'll make sure that like, you know, no one's ever allowed to mention the events from these last 2 seasons in Star Trek the original series, basically. So am I making sense? Like, it just kind of felt weird the way they kind of like tried to fit into continuity rather than just kind of like, I feel like there's just a simpler way they could have written it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the nits, and for me the nitpick was the K2. I mean, it was, I like the moment. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it was just like, okay, we got to figure out a way to how we get this droid into this pairing together. So, but I think they reconciled it. You know, given that he had the loss of Bix, her leaving. And then, you know, with K2 asking, or, you know, why are you pointing the gun at me? To like
exactly
to like get us cued into like their relationship. So, but as far as
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, in that moment, like that you just described was so good. That's why I would say that my whole thing with K2SO was a nitpick, you know. And same with Mon Mothma. It's like I have those like nitpicks, but they're really nitpicks because everything else was so good. Like it did not bring down the episode at all. It was just something where like the more I thought about them, I'm like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah. Shout out to Kiki, and shout out to Scara for certainly joining us today. We appreciate you guys coming through.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with the referencing, because I was like, and like I said, I had to go after the episode. I did go watch the Rebels episode, but I think it made it very to me. It was very clear that, especially after rewatching the Rebels episode, it was 2 speeches, because they referenced this. And Tony Gilroy even brings it up. He's like, they didn't want to reuse the word for word someone else's lines for that scene in the Senate. So, they had like they had the speech in the Senate. They shut everything down. And of course, we do get in the Rebels, the big speech that she's able to share to everyone. And they do finally meet up at Dantooine. So I think they do work together. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's just since it's since I've had, prior to this episode 9, it's been like, over maybe a year and a half or so last time I watched Rebels. So, but watching it fresh, I'm like, oh yeah, they do work. They do sync up pretty well together.
Yeah, I think the 2 speeches do work really well. I mean, one, because he said they did cut the broadcast, and so the idea too is like you still want to get your message and voice heard and put out there to as many people as you possibly can. So if that includes a secondary speech, I'm okay with it. I did find it convoluted a little bit too, Stuart, in the sense of who is she going with, who's picking her up, and then where are they picking her up from a little bit. That was a little bit weird, but I didn't have the problem with I know you mentioned the idea of like she just gave a speech about the truth, and then they talk about the idea of like wanting to retell the story, whatever. I can't remember the line that they used. But somebody in Andor mentioned the idea of like, I think it was Bale, where he says, winners get to tell the history, and so it kind of, to me, it felt like it kind of fell in line with that line a little bit.
Yeah, and also as far as picking up, I mean, it goes into the whole, it did feel convoluted, because I was like, I was trying to track who's doing what.
Yeah, who's picking up who? Where are they meeting up?
Making sure I'm not getting my Rebels canon and Andor. Just looks like, okay, finally I was like, just ride with the story will. It'll all work out.
Yeah, those nitpicks didn't really bother me. Like, I knew she was gonna get to do her speech with Rebels. I was like, yeah, she's gonna do it. Like, that's fine. We're moving forward. The thing about K2SO, like, his introduction didn't really bother me, but I think for me personally, as such a big Rogue One fan, I thought that Cassian and K2 would have like a longer history than just 2 years. Like, I was expecting K2 to be in season 1. You know what I mean? Like, those are besties. I also think that there is a comic out about K2, and I think that this episode retcons that comic. So I know some people are upset about that. But again, like, I think it's fine. I'm just happy to see K2. I mean, I wish we got more K2 in cast like sooner, but
I heard Tony Gilroy had 5 years. I heard Tony Gilroy said he wanted to do a K2SO episode in the sense of like a horror episode, but they didn't have the budget or something like that, or it was going to go over budget or something like that. Yeah,
that would have been pretty cool.
Tales of K2SO, Tale of the Droids.
yes, let's do it. That's the next one, y'all, for sure.
Right. You heard it here first at A+ Hero Reports.
That's right. If you Tales of the Droids.
Yeah, and all the retcons and stuff, certain points of view, it's all.
Exactly. And that's like, honestly, that's how I interpret a lot of Star Wars. When we have like animation, we have the movies, we have these TV shows, and sometimes the stories don't match up perfectly, but I kind of see it more as like, this is just the telling of the events. Like, this is just how it happened. We have these great heroes, we have these great battles, we have these amazing droids, but like how it gets told to us, maybe that's not exactly how it happened. It's all magic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, because for a few years now, there's been a little bit of a disconnect between the comics, the novels, and then the shows and movies. Because like I think it started with the Clone Wars season 7 because there were some things with the Ahsoka story that didn't line up with the novel, and then same with the Bad Batch didn't really line up with the comic book tie-in with Kanan. And these are fine, like as long as you have a justified reason for wanting to change it because it needs to fit a really important narrative. I don't mind it, especially because it's not like they're completely like saying, oh, this is completely like we didn't take anything into consideration. There's always like elements of those comics and novels that do still play out within the actual canon of the shows and movies.
Right. I agree. As long as it's not like completely retconning something or throwing things out the window that we've come to like know as truth about our stories, like I'm okay with it a little bit. I know. It's like
Vader is no longer Vader is no longer Luke's father.
Han shot first. That's all. Right. That bottom line. That's I don't care what 97 special edition says. Han shot first.
Han shot first. Period.
I do want to give a quick pro here. This is, I know you mentioned this last week, Will, the music for Andor. This was probably the first week for me where I was like, damn, this is like really, really good all the way throughout. The sound and the music I thought was handled really, really well here. So yeah, pros for that.
Yeah, I had that down as well as for my pro. The score, I mean, everything, especially episode 8. I mean, even the beginnings of each episode always sets the mood, and then but then really the music and the sound design when the massacre was leading up and going to it, and the people chanting. First they're chanting. I think about the big chants in this series as far as with the Aldhani march to when they had the big festival, and of course One Way Out, as far as the prison break, and of course the funeral procession on Ferrix, and now the people march. All that the massacre pulled all of those epic moments that we've seen the last 2 seasons with this show into that sequence of events, and it was just powerful. I think that's why it was just so emotionally devastating, because you had the music, you had the people, the chants, but then they switched to their national anthem, anytime anyone sings their national anthem, and it's that sense of unity and bonding. I mean, it just it was just powerful, and so the sound design and the everything about the score, and I think the score, the end music of episode 9, and it's just that proto techno like 80s like synth heavy out. It was just like, now I felt that energy of the rebellion, because it's like we're propelling forward to the events of that one BBY and Rogue One and into A New Hope. So it just music over the years, sound and sound design and score have really, especially as a podcaster, really been paying more attention to those kind of things, and it really does just set the mood and tone for a story that we just, if you don't have the right one, or if you have a very bland one, it can just it makes a scene work or not.
Yeah, I every time I hear a chant or people sing, I always think to myself, I wonder if Will likes it based off of the Witch's song from The Acolyte. I know how much that one really bugged the hell out of you. That one really bugged the hell out of you.
Yeah, to this day.
We don't talk about The Acolyte.
Let's not.
We're having such a good time.
But yeah, any other pros that we didn't talk about? All right, we got everything, you think? Oh, you know what? You brought up the anthem. I did find it interesting that homeboy that played a part in getting Cinta killed wind up joining the rebellion, or the part of the rebels, because he was the guy that was trying to interfere with what was going on with the them trying to rob the empire and things like that, and got into the squabble, and that's where the wildfire was shot was fired. And I think he was even carrying Cinta, I think, in that episode also. Yeah. So I'm interested. I'm glad that he wind up taking that energy and putting it towards the rebellion.
Yeah, because I think the whole thing in that episode could have been avoided had they just had the dude just told him what they were doing, or given him some kind of indication, rather than just trying to boss him around and tell him no, you cannot walk here, without giving him an actual reason. So it's of course a guy like that is going to be why not? Right. So it makes sense that he would also be a part of this group. He would also agree with the injustice, basically.
Scarab says, will next week top this week?
Unfortunately, yes.
We expecting anything in particular, or how are you guys feeling going into the finale?
Well, this was the episode that I'd been really hyped up on from all the non-spoiler reviews from all the people that got to see the season, early. So I'm not expecting it to top these 3 episodes, but I am, of course, expecting them to still be good. I don't expect it. I don't expect to be on the edge of my seat the way I was, in episodes 8 and 9.
Crystal, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh, yeah, I think you're muted.
Thank you. I think that did I hear somewhere that this show is going to be companion piece to Rogue One, or am I making that up? I
saw, for the 10th anniversary, I think they've talked about editing this into feature-length companion thing for the 10th anniversary release next year.
Because I could see if we're 1 year out from the Battle of Yavin, things are going to be heating up. Maybe they're going to be looking for Jin, or know that something is happening with, maybe Saw Gerrera is going to tell them something, or something with the Death Star is going to happen. We're going to need to get help. Maybe we'll see stuff from Bodhi defecting, or maybe we'll see more people defecting. I don't know. I'm kind of expecting it to really fold into Rogue One. Maybe not get cameos like Bodhi or Jin, or even Galen. Even though we all know that I really want to see Galen. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see Krennic. I'm assuming we're going to get a lot closer to that where we started off in Rogue One.
Yeah, I agree, Crystal. I think we'll get to that moment where we first get introduced to Cassian, and meeting up with the informant.
Right.
But I think this I don't think it'll be like, as I said at the beginning, it's like a lot of times with some shows and movies, and with TV shows, the penultimate episode that sets everything up is, I think this was like Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, is sometimes more explosive than the finale.
Yeah.
And so I think the 1 year before BBY, I think it'll just be a lot of foundational things that sort of set the table for Rogue One, and there'll be some I'm sure amazing moments, because this is just, they're just not going to like not stick the landing with this show.
Right.
But I think it'll be more, to your point, Crystal, I think it'll be more just getting all the pieces and players in place for what we see with Rogue One in this last batch of episodes.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna be sad to see the show go, for real. I really am. It's been really good. And just the impact that it's had on Star Wars in general for me. Probably some of the best stuff that I've seen since the actual movies themselves, in general. I hope one day George Lucas comes out and talks about his thoughts on Andor, if he's even had the opportunity to watch it. I really would like to know how George feels about the series, or if he's even watched it. I really have no idea, but I hope George does talk about it a little bit, because I would like to know.
Because it's not that I think he wouldn't like anything that Disney has done with Star Wars, but I think this would be his favorite if he were to like watch. If I were to recommend to George Lucas any one Star Wars that Disney has done, it would be Andor.
Yeah, same.
For sure. Yep.
But it is that time, y'all. It is that time.
Yes.
It is report card time. This is where we grade the arc. So we're going to be grading 7, 8, and 9 as a whole. So if you had to take your report card home to your family and open it up to your mom, like, mom, look what they graded Andor. Aren't you happy? Aren't you proud? What would we grade it? Let me get my calculator out here real quick first. Ladies first. Crystal, what do you grade it?
100.
Flying colors, passing with flying colors, A+, baby. Will, what about you?
I will give it a 98.
Period. Tell
him. Stuart, what about you, buddy?
99.
Oh. All right.
I
3 for 3.
I really had no qualms with this episode, man. I don't think I've ever given out 100 before, but if Crystal couldn't do it, so can I. Give me 100, baby.
Yeah.
100, baby. Yo, I'd never give out hundreds, but I was feeling this shit. So all 3, I mean, it was just perfection to me.
This is so appropriate. There's been so many times when we rate things that I'm like, I was a little too generous or a little too hard, but this one, a solid 100.
Yeah, the only thing, like, I think to Stuart's point, it was the having to force the K2. It's the only thing that kept it from being 100 for me. It was just a couple things where they had to like work into the show, but I mean, it's otherwise. Yeah.
Excuses.
It was those it was those 2 tiny nitpicks I had that stopped me from giving it 100, but like everything else was so perfect.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I did take those into consideration.
I did. I walked in here thinking 98 for sure, but I'm like, I really didn't have any complaints. I really don't know. I can't think of anything.
If something is going to be the best, this is it,
Yeah.
So that averaged out. Thanks a lot, guys. 99.25. But yeah, still an A+, still an A+ in our book here. So I think we got 2 A's for the first 2 arcs, and I don't know if this might be our first or second A+ that we've ever given out for an episode before. But A+. Andor arcs 7 through 9. What would you guys rate it? I'm trying to see if Kiki says A++++++, off the chart stuff. PJ says incredible, probably in top 5 Star Wars of all time. Wouldn't doubt that at all. Is that 100? 100 live blinded?
100 out of 10.
Period.
Make the right choice with your rating. Yeah, we definitely did for sure. So yeah, guys, A+ for this arc. And can't wait to talk more Star Wars with you guys next week, I should say. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. You know what? Let's do a roundtable of where we can find everybody. Crystal, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
I have a YouTube channel here on YouTube. I make makeup and Star Wars videos. I'm also pretty active on Twitter. I love to just scream into the void. So check me out, Crystal Kyber.
I love it. And Will, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, you can see there my handle at Will M. Polk on all the socials. You can also find our Scene a Nerd podcast. We drop episodes every week. We're covering Andor right now, as well as The Last of Us. And we also just recently had a discussion about Thunderbolts. Asterix, the new Avengers. But we dropped 2 episodes this week because we felt that the Andor, we couldn't do justice to all the content that we have that's going on right now. But you can find all our shows and all our social handles by going to our website, www.sceneanerdpodcast.com.
Great stuff, Will, as always. Light Blinded says, who are the Imperial spies that made it less than 100? You can find them right here.
They figured me out.
Works for the ISB. Yeah. Kiki, thank you so much for the compliment. We always appreciate having you here for sure. Stuart, if people want to find you, sir, on social media, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at the Death Star because, of course, I am an Imperial spy, as the person in the comments just called me out for. No, but you guys can find me on Instagram at TurboStew01, and you can also find me on Letterboxd, also at TurboStew01.
Perfection. And if you want to follow us anywhere on social media, right up here at A+ Opinions, very active over on social media, Twitter, and most importantly, our Facebook page. That's where we drop all of our news throughout the week. And then we have a live show on our YouTube channel as you're watching here right now. If you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification so anytime we drop a brand new video, go live, you will certainly be notified about it. We will be live again next week for you guys, Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time. Mark your calendars as we will be here to talk about the finale of Andor Season 2. It's over. So yeah, get your tissues ready, guys. Get your tissues ready. But we'll definitely love to see you guys then. But in the meantime, do us a big favor. As always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the Force be with you. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.